Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Denise Bryson on today's show.
Welcome everyone to our radio show today. I have the pleasure of interviewing Missy Jane, and she is the author of the Gargoyle Masters series. And so today we're going to talk about several of her books, and we're going to talk. She's actually written 11 that I counted, and so she's really busy. So anyway, we want to talk to her. But welcome to our show, Missy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being the opportunity to be on your show.
And so, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I am a Texas author, born and raised in Texas, born in El Paso, raised in Houston. I've been writing for a long time. I don't know exactly when I started. I've been published since 2009. I originally was with a couple of small presses and a medium press. I had 20 books out, and then my publisher started to close. And I got all the rights back to all of my books, and so I'm slowly self-publishing them now. So I write romance, I write fantasy romance, paranormal romance, and contemporary romance. I have an urban fantasy that I need to republish, but I'll be writing in that genre soon as well.
Wow, it's amazing. So I counted 11, but there's actually 20 books. That is amazing. So you can tell us some things about getting books published. That's what I really.
I mean, yes and no, because I'm still working my way through self-publishing. I've only been doing it a couple of years, and there's a lot, a lot to know.
It's a lot to know. It is a lot to know, and people think it's an easy task, but it's not. So tell us a little bit. I know you're the mother of four.
Yes,
I daughters.
Well, actually, my early bios and some I've been trying to catch them all do say I have 4 beautiful daughters, but as of a few years ago, I actually have 3 daughters and a son now. My youngest is transgender, which anyone who follows me on social media, I've made it very obvious. And so I have now a son. It's been a little bit of getting used to, but you know, we love him. Everybody is very supportive. Luckily, everybody in our extended family has been very supportive, and his friends. And but yeah, all of my extra time when I'm not reading or writing is spent on my kids and my husband.
that is beautiful. So tell us a little bit about Born of the Forbidden. It's a part of, it's the 3rd book in your series in the Gargoyle Masters series. I got to get that tongue tied sometime.
Yeah, it is. And what it is, it's a fantasy romance. So basically it's set in a completely fantasy world. And my guys, I call them gargoyles, but they're not like ugly gargoyles. Basically they turn to stone, and they're hot. They're really handsome guys. But they turn to stone whenever they're fighting, because the whole purpose, they were created to protect the human realm of the world that I created. And so when they turn to stone, everyone just thinks of them as gargoyles because they're made of stone. But their whole purpose is to do that. Well, in the series, in these books, these guys have been around already for 70 years. They've been fighting and working and living amongst each other. And now suddenly they're starting to fall in love with these particular women. And so each book is a story of 2. They consider each other brothers. So each book is of 2 of the brothers basically finding their destined mate, kind of. But the women are human or one of the other races that I have in the world.
And so, because I noticed that when I was reading through, and that you said you noted that they're fighters, but they're also lovers.
Oh,
and
yes.
So many times when we hear things about gargoyles, we tend to think, oh, it's going to be scary. But it's not a scary book. These are not scary. This is not a scary series. It is actually a series about love and having to fight to protect. And so they're protectors. They're not really coming to do harm, but they're coming to help. And so that's what's so great about it. Yeah. So what audience do you typically try to reach with this style of writing?
Well, they're definitely for adults. There are adult themes in my books. And so really any adult lover of fantasy, And when I say adult, I mean just anyone who reads adult themes. I've had, you know, teenagers, older teenagers that read my books. Not my teenagers, they won't read my books. They won't read my books, but I've had teenagers who are adults read my books, and there's really just no age. I've met men and women who've enjoyed my books, but if someone who likes fantasy and someone who likes romance, and especially someone who likes both fantasy and romance, it's a mesh of both.
So now, what inspired you to write the books, to write the series, actually?
You know, I'm what's called a pantser. I write by the seat of my pants. I don't plot or plan anything out. And to be honest, I think, if I remember correctly, I had read a short story with a gargoyle as a hero. And I thought, you know what, I like that idea, because at the time, I mean, now you can find gargoyles a lot in the romance genre, but at the time there weren't a lot when I first wrote these books. And so I started just thinking of different ways that mine could be different, and I didn't want them to be ugly. And this third book, the most recent one, has a battle in it, but the first couple of books, there's not really any violence, there's very little fighting. And so I wanted it to be more romance themed than anything else. And once I wrote the first one, I mean, the ideas just kept coming. And luckily, because there's 12 brothers, so there's going to be 6 books total. So luckily, I have enough ideas to get all of those books out. I just have to find the time.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And that's just, you know, that's so what. And now, what did you do prior to being just a writer? Because I mean, this has to take up, you know, the majority, a lot of your time, because it's a lot to it. Yeah,
it is. And I do actually have a full-time job in corporate America. But, you know, before this, I've worked at home and been just a mom, you know, just a housewife a few times in my life, and tried to get some writing done then. But honestly, it's just one of those things that where once I find the inspiration to write, I mean, I take my laptop to work with me. I write on my lunch breaks. You know, I always have a pad of paper and a pen in my purse. So if an idea hits me, I can jot it down. But it's just like reading. Honestly, I always have a book on me too. So I just have to, wherever I can fit it in, I write. And my husband knows that once I'm in the groove, that he's got to just leave me alone and keep the kids away. But we're finally at the point where all the kids are almost out of the house. So I may actually have more time. We'll see.
What's that? That is amazing. So and so with the series, you also have let me see, I'm trying to keep up with my time. What about the next book in the series? I think it's Born of the Magic.
Well, so this Born of the Forbidden is the third book. It's the most recent one. And the first book actually was Born of Stone.
Okay.
You can really see that, but it's actually the picture behind me at the top. Born of Stone is the very first one, and then Born of Magic underneath it is the second book. And then Born of the Forbidden is the third one. I am already writing the fourth book. I think on chapter 3 already. So I'm hoping to have it done by the end of the year, but I have a couple of other writing projects I'm also working on. So, and again, when it comes to self-publishing, I mean, I have to be the marketing and, you know, editing and everything. I do pay a professional editor, and I definitely pay someone to do my book covers because I just don't have that talent. But yeah, I'm in the midst of book 4 already.
Now I wanted to ask you a question about Born of the Stone. Is that what it is? Yeah, Born of the Stone. You made a comment, and the comment was, "Strong beats a heart encased in stone." So can you talk about that?
Well, he is. This is the first book, so he's the first brother to fall in love. And again, they've already been around for 70 years. They were created as full-grown men. So they've been with women and stuff, but they've never had relationships. They've basically just had fun. And so this first brother, Orestes, he is the first one to have an interest in a woman that seems to go beyond just a one-night stand. And it really takes all of the brothers aback. You know, they're just like, oh, okay, well, so that's what we're doing now. Okay. But Orestes himself is even thinking, you know, well, maybe tomorrow I'll be ready to have her move on, you know, and he's not heartless or anything, but even when he does have to actually leave to go check on some a fight in another town, he doesn't want to leave her, and that's never happened. So, you know, the whole thing is that it's almost as if all of a sudden their hearts are beating, which, I mean, obviously their hearts have been beating, but all of a sudden he feels love for one particular woman. And also his brother now, who has excuse me, his story in this book, the same thing happens to him. He happens to have interactions with this woman, and unexpectedly is so drawn to her that when it's time for him to go home, he basically takes her with him, and he says, "You want to go?" And she's like, "Well, sure." So he takes her home with him, and it's just so unprecedented for them.
We're going to take a short break, and I got a really good question I want to ask when we come back. But anyway, we're going to take a really short break, and we hear a word from our sponsors. And so we'll be back.
Marianne Fairmonth is a career consultant with 30 years experience in the national recruiting world, a multi-award-winning author in multi-genres, and a speaker that gives presentations to help you succeed. Her book, Revolutionary Recruiting, made the top 20 global list of recruiting books. Find her on Amazon, your favorite bookstore, or at fairmonth.com.
To embrace your children's imagination, check out Diane Floyd Baines' books for kids. There's The Moonling Adventures, all about the animals in the Serengeti. And then there's Harry the Camel, learning to love yourself just the way you are. Then The Little Girl in the Moon. There's one about friendship, another one about the big ideas, which is an inspirational story, and then Tour Tycho Town, right there in Tycho Crater on the moon. All of Diane Floyd Baines' books are available at B4R Store.
Hello, I am the author Denise Bryson. My first book is The Things That Cross My Mind, Inspirational Poetry with Life Lessons. And then my audio book is Love's Reality. And it is also inspirational poetry with a jazzy flair. And then my new book is The Sex, the Lies, and the Soul Ties. They're really short stories written from a poetic expression. And then I have my first children book series, the Blinky series, which the first book is called Meet the Coins, and it is both in English and Spanish. And then the new book From Coins to Bills. I am the author, Denise Bryson.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Marianne Fairmonth on today's show.
Well, welcome everyone back to our radio show. Thanks for listening to our sponsors. And I've been having the privilege to interview Missy Jane, and she is the author of the Gargoyle Masters series. And of course, it has 3 books, Born of Stone and Born of Magic, and then her newest addition to it, Born of the Forbidden. And of course, she has 20 books in all, so she is really a great writer, and she's even been working on the 4th in this book series. And so we're excited to talk about this particular series that we're enjoying hearing her talk about right now. And so I wanted to ask a question. So I know you told me these are 12 brothers that are apart. Now, can I ask a question? Have they been speaking to you about moving from where they were to getting into relationships?
No. And so that was what was really, you know, surprise to the characters, is that they all of a sudden they want to be in relationships with, but it's not until they meet these particular women that they just feel drawn to. In book 2, one of them feels very restless, and he doesn't know what's wrong and you know what is going on. Then he meets the woman who's basically destined for him, and goes and just thinks, this is what I've been waiting for. He felt as if he had been waiting for something but didn't know what. And once he meets her, that feeling goes away, and he thinks, well, this is what I had been waiting for. And you know, it's a surprise to them, but they just kind of go with the flow, because they were created by magic. They were created by wizards. So anything that happens to them, even the wizards are like, oh, well, okay, I guess that's just part of who you are, because it's, you know, there is no precedent, because they were a creation that was just completely new to the wizards and the world and everything. So every step of the way, anything they do is unexpected and new.
And so the lady that he falls in love with, she's trying to be a wizard too, but they don't really accept women. So that was another thing. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, yeah. So she has these inherent powers, just like the wizards do. But in the centuries long tradition of this group of wizards, they're called the 20. They've never had a woman as a part of their 20 because I believe in one part I say that the women don't make it through the test, that they're just not strong enough. Well, she's strong enough. She's not human. She's of a different race of people that I call the Paste. And they live in a place called Pastel. And so she is not human. I kind of made them kind of like elves, I guess, is the closest thing that someone who's never read my books or my world could be similar to. But so she is stronger than a human woman anyway. But then because of the magic she was born with, she is strong enough to be a wizard. And so that's, she meets the gargoyle, and he's very enamored of her, but also not intimidated by her, but just surprised, because in one scene, he wants to pick up, her brother is injured. He goes to pick him up, but she beats him to it, picks her brother up, and it takes him aback because he forgets that she's not just an ordinary woman, she's not a human woman. So he has to get used to that. He has to get used to her strengths.
And I know one of the things in the book, that a statement she made was failure was not an option. Mm-hmm. And so she's determined that she's going to pass the test. And so,
yeah, that's been her goal. She has always felt that magic and that drive to be the best that she could be in her own homeland. But then once she comes to realize that there is an opening in the 20, that they're the 19, one of them is dismissed basically. And so then she feels that drive to fill that position, because it's a very honored position. And basically the best of the best when it comes to the wizarding world are in that group. And so then that's her whole goal for the time, other than meeting the gargoyle, who she already knows is destined for her, even though he wasn't aware of it. But it's kind of the best of both worlds, because she gets to go into that kingdom for both purposes.
And so now so this is your romantic writer as well, and then you do some other some erotica as well.
Yes. Yes, and really it's erotic romance, and it kind of depends on who you ask, because some people very strictly define erotica as almost women's fiction with sexy scenes, where it doesn't necessarily have a happily ever after, which romance always has to have a happily ever after. That's what makes it a romance. My stories will always have a happily ever after, or what's called a happy for now ending. I always like my people to get together and be happy by the end of the book, and it's I have yet to write like a book 2 where the relationship dissolves or anything, because honestly, I write the books I want to read. I write the stories out so I'll know how they end, and I want the ending to be happy. So yeah, mine, depending again on who you ask, I would say it's erotic romance more so than erotica. It just depends really on how you look at it.
Now, even with this, I think it's the Born of Magic. So mm-hmm. Born of Magic, there's a twist in here as well, because it says that it's unprecedented for a woman. It talked about that, but mm-hmm. I thought I read in one of them where it said that that he was kind of because he really liked a man and not so much a woman.
Yes, and that's the newest book, Born of the Forbidden. This is the first time I've ever written an LGBTQ plus character as a main character. I do have a book that I wrote that was contemporary romance, where a couple of the side characters, it's a gay male couple, but they're the neighbors, so they don't have a big place in the book. But this is the first time that I went ahead and I had a character that was very strong-willed in writing, in my head, and I felt comfortable, because I really try to stay in my lane, to be honest. And I don't want to put myself out as an author for something that I don't really know what I'm talking about. So I was very careful in the way that I wrote this one. Their scenes aren't graphic, and may even be a little bit limited, but the scenes of their friendship and their relationship are, to me, I felt fulfilling because I made sure that those were to my satisfaction. But yeah, it's actually the girl in Born of Magic, the lady who's the wizard, her brother is a gay man, and he ends up falling in love with one of the gargoyles, and the gargoyle falls in love with him. So that is in the newest one, Born of the Forbidden. But their world is a little not as tolerant, their kingdom. Or at least they perceive them to be not as tolerant. And so that's why it's Born of the Forbidden, because in some of the places, some of the towns, it's not necessarily accepted for, same-sex couples. So they have a little bit of that going on. I didn't really write a whole lot of strife on that into the book, but I did hint at it because it is, unfortunately a fact of life even in my fantasy world, because it is a fact of life that I see. Because again, I have, my child who's transgender, but a couple of my daughters are also part of the LGBTQ plus community. So this is a reality that our family unfortunately sees, in real life.
Yeah. So, but that was, I saw that and I thought, oh, wow. So that was a different twist of it too. So then, my next question is, I had to write down right here. So when you're writing this series, what is your goals and intentions for your readers? What do you want them to take from the series?
I really just want them to kind of get lost in the world and just enjoy themselves. I mean, to me, reading is an escape. And writing also is an escape to some degree for me as well. But again, I write the books that I want to read. And when I have a story in my head, I have to write it out to know how it ends. And so I like to take the reader on a journey. I want them to be interested in this world and maybe want to know more about it. In this last one, Born of the Forbidden, I put a glossary in the back for the first time because there's all kinds of, terms and people that are, again, it's a fantasy world. So I'm hoping that they'll be interested enough in this fantasy world to want to know, well, why is that race of people called that, or what are they called, and where do they live, and that sort of thing. So I really just hope people enjoy themselves, enjoy the books, and that it kind of takes away from reality, because we have so much reality right now.
I know.
Everywhere on social media and everything. And so to me, reading is an escape, and I hope that people can just get lost in my books.
That's wonderful. So we're going to take our second break. So we're going to take our second break, and so we're going to go and hear some more wonderful things from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with Missy Jane. Thank you.
Publishing marketing package for authors. A $1,500 value, save 40% now. Includes a 6-piece marketing kit of 250 bookmarks, 250 business cards, 250 postcards, 1 table banner, 1 table runner, and 50 download cards, plus book cover design, ebook creation, PDF setups, upload to Ingram Spark, scroll placement, video commercial, and interview on IBS, plus much more. Email bourgeoismedia@look.com for details, or bourgeoismedia.com.
Hi, I'm Mel Greenberg, author of Running with Our Eyes Closed, book 1 in the Empty Nested series. To the world, Samantha has the perfect life. 3 wonderful children, a loving husband, so she thought, and a life split between Dallas and Italy. When her youngest leaves for college, it all comes crashing down, forcing Samantha to re-examine everything. Over 7 days in one of the most romantic countries in the world, Samantha faces the past she thought she'd overcome and begins to redefine her role as a woman, a wife, and a mother.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to care for a loved one? Well, during COVID, almost all of us have been doing just that. I'm Charlotte Canyon, award-winning author, actress, and speaker. And my book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, shows you how you can revive, thrive, and survive with 4 golden rules. You have to love one another. You have to respect one another. You have to have patience with one another. And most of all, you've got to forgive one another. I'm Charlotte Canyon, and I approve this message.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Denise Bryson on today's show.
Thank you for joining our show today and being a part of it. We've been talking to the amazing author, Missy Jane, and she is the author of the Gargoyle Master Series, which includes the Born of Stone, Born of Magic, and Born of the Forbidden. And so she has those 3 books in that series, and she's currently working on the next book, but she's also the author of 20 books. And so she's been doing a lot of amazing writing. And so we've been so privileged to be able to talk to her today. So Missy, what's next for you?
So again, I'm working on the 4th book in the Gargoyle Master Series, which I don't actually have a title yet. It'll be Born of Something. But also I have a series of books about archangels who fall in love with human women. And that one I have the rights back. So I'm working on the 4th book of that series. I haven't decided if I'm going to self-publish the first 3 or not. I'm kind of hoping I can find a publisher that would take the 4th book and then pick up the next 3. I also have some novellas out already that are contemporary romance. One is in the Sophisticated Women series, which is basically about cougars, older women, younger men. And so I have books 2 and 3 in the works for that one. And then I have 2 books out in another contemporary series that are the erotic art series. The first one is an erotic photographer. The second one is about the models. And then the third one is also going to be about a model. So those are out. And I currently have a free novella on available as well that's called Educating Macy, which is a contemporary romance. It's erotic. And it's actually the opening scene in that one is the favorite I've ever written because I think it's hilarious, but you'd have to read it to see what I'm talking about. But yeah, I've got a lot of books in the works.
So where can people find your books?
So I have a website. It is authormissyjane.com. Also, I'm on Twitter as Ms. That's MS Missy Jane. I'm on Facebook as Miss Missy Jane. If you Google author Missy Jane, all of my social media will come up. I'm on Instagram as well. I have a Pinterest that has my book covers on it. I don't really use it a whole lot. I'm mostly though on Twitter and Facebook. I'm there daily. I have a newsletter that you can also find the link on my website. And any events that I'll be attending, which at the moment I only have one more event for 2021 that I plan to attend in October in San Antonio, and that information is on my website as well.
Okay. And then what about, I saw a blog as well?
Yes, I'm terrible about remembering to add to my blog, and honestly, it gets the most action whenever I have writer's block. But I do have a blog. It's a blogger, so the link is also on my website. But it's I believe just Miss Missy Jane at blogspot.com if I remember correctly. But the link is also on my website.
Okay. And then what if I was going to ask this question? Well, you already kind of answered all of them, talk about your events and all those kind of things. So it's just been, it's just been such a pleasure to talk to someone. Now, let me ask you this question. What would you tell someone that is starting to write from all your experience in writing? What is one of the things that you do every time you begin to write? What would you tell them?
What I would tell them before I get into what I do, the one thing that an author told me early on, before I would even admit that I wrote or would let anybody see it, she said, you have permission to write. You have permission to call yourself a writer. And I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that until she said it. And it just really, really opened things up for me in my mind. But, to me, the best advice I can give is just write when you want to. There's so much pressure, especially this past year during the pandemic, on people to produce stuff or to be called a writer. You have to be published. You have to write every day. There's rules of writers. There's no rules. If you feel like you can write, write. If you try to force it, your writing's not going to be any good. So the best thing is just to write when you can. Like I said, I take my laptop to work so I can write on lunch breaks. I don't always write on my lunch break. Sometimes I play on Twitter. So, you know, only write when you feel it. Now, if you're under deadline, don't tell your editor I said that. But the best writing is when you feel the story.
Thank you. That's so much. Thank you so much for talking to us and letting us hear
Thank
about
you.
your amazing books and your masterpieces, as I call them. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for sharing. You know, please go out and support her. Buy her books. She has a lot of them for you to read. And the summer's here. It's hot outside, so stay inside and read.
There you go. Thank you
And
very
read.
much for having me.
Yeah, that cool air.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So, Missy Jane, it has been our pleasure to chat with you today about your written masterpieces as I was closing earlier. And thank you so much for your time and all that you've shared with us. And thank you for that nugget you shared on the end about writing. We thank you so much for that, because people need to hear that. They're kind of afraid, oh, I don't know. But you know, you just got to get out there. And I want everybody to remember to support our authors here at Indie Beacon Radio, support them, and please drop everything and read. And like I told you a while ago, go inside, it's hot out there. Go inside and get you a good book and get one of Missy Jane's book, get the whole series and begin to read from the beginning to the first to the last one that she's done so far. She got some more coming. Anyway, thank you so much. And we appreciate everyone that's been listening in. I have been your host, Denise Bryson. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching or listening to the Indie Beacon Show, produced by Beyond Bourgeois for the Authors Marketing International LLC. Copyright 2021. Voiceover by Beyond Bourgeois. If you would like to be a sponsor of the show, please email us at authorsmarketing@outlook.com. If you would like to be on the show, please complete the form found on our website at indiebeacon.com. You may also watch previous year's shows on the website. Music is Frolic of Words, created for Indie Beacon.